Welcome to Resilience Development in Action with Steve Bisson. This is the podcast dedicated to first responder mental health, helping police, fire, EMS, dispatchers, and paramedics create better growth environments for themselves and their teams. Let's get started.
You know, you've heard me talk about this before. GetFree.ai. Great for your note-taking, good for your transcript, good for your goals, good for everything that you do in a HIPAA-compliant nature. And if you use code STEVE50 at checkout, you will get $50 off your first month. And also, if you get a whole year, you will also get 10% off the whole year. But GetFree.ai has freed me to do more things with my life, including work on other passions. So get freed to do your notes, get freed from doing your goals. GetFree.ai with code STEVE50 to get $50 off your first month. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 227. If you haven't listened to episode 226, it's with Renee Mansfield. Renee had 2 episodes because it was so good, so I hope you go back and listen to this. But for episode 227, I'm here with someone who apparently I have harassed to be on this show. I've also apparently harassed her in being in the group that we work on together. Apparently I'm a harasser in general, so please, no lawsuits, just saying. And I got to learn how to spell her name because apparently I do that wrong too. But seriously, Amanda Rizoli is someone that I've known for a couple of years now through Chris's Corner, through Community Impact, and I've always had great interactions with her. She has the same passions that I do, plus more, which she's going to talk about today. But Amanda Rizoli, welcome to Resilience Development in Action.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the invite to come on your podcast.
Well, let's start off with an easy one. Why do you think I harass you?
Because you're good at it.
Oh, okay.
You just know what you want. So I wouldn't really say it's harassing. You're persistent, and making sure that you can get who you need or answers to what you need. So I wouldn't really say harassing.
Well, I only harass the people I want to talk to regularly, so.
Perfect.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Erin complains about that. Alexa from our Behind the Badge and Beyond group. And if you ask Lisa, I bother her all the time. Lisa Trusis, who works with you. But all joking aside, tell us a little bit about yourself. I obviously know you. I feel like I really know you. But obviously not everyone knows you on the podcast, so please go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I am an outpatient therapist. I have a master's in social work. I have my LCSW. I am the clinical program coordinator and co-response clinician for Community Impact and the Milford Police Department's Family Services Unit. And we also partner with Chris's Corner, as you had mentioned. We have New England Medical Group right here in town with a partial hospitalization program and an intensive outpatient program. So I assist anyone in the community, being trilingual, Portuguese being my first language, and also knowing Spanish. I go out with the PD and I assist in whatever way that I can, whether it's connecting people with mental health services, detox, domestic violence and things like that. And, we're also involved in the schools as well. If they need any assistance, we do have a therapy canine, Piper, who tags along with us. She's great. And, that's kind of what I do. I'm just a girl of all trades.
Yeah, but see, this is what typically you do, Amanda.
Right.
You tell me about what you do in life, but you didn't tell me anything about you other than you're trilingual.
Myself?
Yeah, because trilingual is the first, I knew you spoke 2 languages.
Yep.
I did not know 3, so I've learned something.
Yep.
But what about Amanda? I mean, who is she?
I am a wife. Married to this world. My husband is a sergeant with the police department. We have 3 beautiful children, all girls, and we have a dog. I just like to do what I do for work and just be that, attentive mom at home as much as I can. We have both very strong families, him being Italian and Irish and me being 100% Portuguese. So we mesh very well, and family's everything.
How are the arguments? I mean, Jesus.
When I'm wrong, and I'll admit to it, but we all know that's far and few in between. So, but they're
of
great.
Course. And I'm sure he'd say the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
But no, I think that that's always cool. I think about like Portuguese and Italians, I don't really want to argue with either or. So that's why, like, although I'm a Quebecer, we are very stubborn people.
Right.
But like you said, I harassed you. But obviously the mission of this podcast, and you've obviously listened to a little bit of the podcast. So what really, besides harassment, what made you decide to come on here?
I wanted to come on here to talk about, the importance of treating and providing services for our first responders. It's an area that, not many people are well versed in or well trained in. And also there's that stigma of first responders seeking mental health treatment. So being able to make that option available to individuals is key, but also knowing how to approach it and assist them. So I wanted to really dive into that and kind of just talk about what I do.
And you do so much. I mean, again, should probably shout out Amy Leone.
Yeah, Amy is my clinical director. She owns Community Impact and Christus Corner, and she, started up the Family Services Unit with the Milford Police Department. She co-owns New England Medical Group. She also has her own sober house as well, and she is, a woman of many expertise, and I wouldn't be where I am today without her. So. She's definitely someone that I enjoy highly working with, and she is always there to encourage us to do what it is that we want to do and support us in our journeys.
I met Amy years ago. I can't even remember how long ago. And we were talking about Reiki at the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think community impact existed too long before we talked. Okay. And we look at JAG today, which works with the juvenile advocacy group, which we do quarterly. Mm-hmm. A little more than quarterly. But,
every other month, yep.
Yeah. But, what I've always found fascinating is, Amanda, you were sitting there in that group. I remember being at the police station, and I saw you there for the first time, and you have this energy about working with this community in general. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, that's always something admirable, because as much as I am a pain in the butt, and I certainly talk the way I do, I also believe in the community for first responders. But to help first responders, we got to help the community too. Right. Because if we're not helping the community, the first responders have it worse. Correct. So you got to find a way to kind of find a balance. Right. What made you, what possess someone to become a mental health counselor, work in the community with what I consider sometimes the people who are the most needy, but will never reach out for help?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always just been a helper, growing up, first generation born here. My family didn't know much of English, so having to help my parents with that process, whether it was filling out forms, going to doctor's appointments and things like that, to, growing up and helping my grandmother when she was ill and things. I always just had that niche for wanting to help individuals. And, there's a huge stigma with mental health with, individuals whose primary language isn't English, but there's also a lack of services for those individuals. So I figured, why not can't be that voice and that support for those individuals so that they can also get proper support and treatment as well.
And I think it's speaking Portuguese in what I consider in Massachusetts, Marlborough, Framingham, Milford, kind of that triad is so essential. Yep. I remember having therapists who are Portuguese speaking, they would be full in about 2 seconds.
Yes.
And when we talk about Portuguese, a lot of people misunderstand that. They think it's Brazil and Brazilians, which is fine, but there's also a large number of Portuguese from Portugal that are in the area that people don't understand. And there are cultural differences between 100%. The two. And how do you kind of manage that? Because when people know I speak French, they go into Parisian French or something about Paris. I am from Quebec. That's all fine and good. I'm not putting France down, kind of. But I'm not from there. Yeah. I'm from Quebec, which is a little more gritty, a little more New Englandish, but we speak French. Right. How do you navigate these cultural differences? Because it is you don't discuss the same thing. Like, you show up 20 minutes late in Brazil, who cares?
Right.
You show up 20 minutes late in Portugal, okay, it's a little off.
Right.
But I'm talking about very, very big, very small things, but I'm sure there's different.
Yeah, so I mean, just there's different dialects, obviously between Portugal and Brazil, but even just if you look at just Brazil or just Portugal, from north to south, there's different dialects. Look at the United States. You have us New Englanders up here, and, we can't pronounce our R's, but you have someone down south and you may not even understand what they're saying. So it's kind of like that, and just understanding the different like lingo terms and learning those things, and just evolving and educating yourself about the different norms and what's culturally accepted and not within all these different communities. And that goes for same for the Spanish population. I mean, Milford has a very strong Ecuadorian population here in town, and they all have different dialects, and that goes just whether you're from Spain or Puerto Rico or El Salvador, their dialects are all different, and it's learning those different dialects.
So don't call someone from Costa Rica El Salvadorians. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Well, that's something that seems very intuitive for people who speak two languages.
Right.
But as we don't pronounce our R's here, and I mean, and I need to see Dorchester. That's for someone who's in the other side of this window, and you just need to say Dorchester.
Dorchester.
Just to say it properly. But I think that it's also thinking about how you approach things. Because I think that when I worked in Framingham for several years on the crisis team, and approaching the Brazilian population about domestic violence, approaching them in regards to getting their own rights when they have those statuses in this country that are different. And I'm trying to be as politically freaking correct as I can right now. How do you, really approach that differently? Because I see even the difference. You said it's El Salvador, Costa Rica. Don't tell someone from Chile that they're from Spain.
Right.
I mean, but they're also like these logistics are difficult because technically Portuguese, and again, percentage-wise, this is not me making it up, most of them are here more legally than Brazil. How do you navigate those things? Because that's tough.
Right. So the issue in regards to that is, you have to just offer what is available. And, you're going to end up with barriers, whether it's language, whether it's health insurance, or whether it's just not something that's culturally accepted. A lot of these immigrant communities, mental health isn't a thing for them. It's, suck it up, buttercup, move on, like you'll be fine kind of thing. I think that you're starting to now see this younger generation of parents starting to be a little more accepting and open to these services because they now see their kids going through it, and it's starting to trigger their own generational trauma. And they're like, okay, so this actually isn't okay. It wasn't okay to be this way. And, a huge mentality with this generation is trying to break that generational trauma and being bigger and better than what your parents were. And I feel like that's something that every parent strives to be, is always better than what their parents were, for good or, whether their childhood was perfect or, if there were some downfalls, they just want to be better. And I think that you're starting to see that a little more now with this up-and-coming generation of parents.
And it's good to see that there is some barriers that are being broken. I mean, I see people reaching out a little more, not seeing the police as the enemy all the time,
Right.
although it still occurs, by the way,
Right.
just being truthful. But, when you're facing so many barriers, so many difficulties, first generation born here, Portuguese, what keeps you going? I mean, for me, I think that's one of the questions that comes up constantly for people. These are a lot of barriers. When I worked in the social services field, barrier after barrier after barrier after barrier, and it was so freaking aggravating for me. How do you what keeps you going? Because this is not easy. I see all of you go on, and Chris's Corner and Community Impact and the New England Medical Group. Everything's getting bigger in the Milford, Massachusetts area with that.
Right.
But at one point, you got it gets exhausting. I don't know about you, but that's how I felt sometimes.
I mean, for me, it's just, I want it, even if it's just one family, one person, if I can turn their day around or be of that support, that's my end goal. working, in various jobs, between the states and the schools and now here, there were those cultural barriers because of whether it was status or, language capabilities and things like that. And the way I look at it is I was one of those kids growing up, my parents migrated here and, I had that language barrier issue growing up because my parents didn't know. They know now because they learned. But, if I can be that pivotal pillar for them to make that shift so that they can get what they need, why not be that person for them?
Wow, you have a lot of passion. It's good that it keeps you going and helping one person. It's a little bit of what I say about this podcast, too. Mm-hmm. If only one person listened to this and got something out of it, I'm very happy. It means I've done my job. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it gets exhausting.
It does.
And as I record this, I'm actually on vacation from work, but I'm so happy to do the podcast, so it's still not work for me. Is there times where you're working and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like work. This is actually enjoyable?
For the most part, that's how I always feel at work, because I love doing what I do. I love helping people. I think the only time that it gets frustrating is when there isn't that specific service attainable or reachable for those individuals, and it's like I have to dig deep to try to find it, but also kind of being that intermittent person to help keep them, at bay, not at bay, but help them, stay in a positive environment in the meantime till we can get them connected with the appropriate service. So just trying to be that uplifting person while they're kind of in limbo.
And being uplifting is so easy yet difficult.
Yeah.
Because they face barriers that we do. A lot of people face barriers. And, you talk about helping them through. I remember getting a call at 11 o'clock at night. Where can you get someone in a homeless shelter at 11 o'clock at night in Massachusetts? A prayer.
Yeah.
And you got to be creative, which is the other part, too, that I give you a lot of credit for. You are a very creative person with the stuff that you do. Is that the other part, too, to continue to be creative, not only helping one person, but being creative when a problem occurs? Because I've been in that vehicle with the officer turning around like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this?
Yeah, and you have to be creative. You have to, sometimes you just got to think on your toes because granted, the same call may come in, but every scenario is different. Every person's view is different of, when we respond and, what they're willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept. So you kind of have to be creative in your approach and how you're going to get them to engage.
And how do we get people to engage in general? I mean, to me, that's the hardest part, not only about our work with the community, but I think that even again, we work together, I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little more, but working with the first responder group, getting them to engage. Mm-hmm. I mean, I found my own techniques, but I'm wondering if you have found things that really do work because the cultural competency of working with first responders, I think, is the same cultural competency working with Brazilians, Portuguese, El Salvadorians. And again, I'm talking about people around even Puerto Rico, because sometimes people consider, again, sorry to break a wall here, but Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. Please remember that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people treat it like it's a different country.
Right.
I mean, you need to adapt all the time. Mm-hmm. So how do you keep going? How do you do that and keep people going and helping the first responder world, helping the different cultures? But I think that for me, it's really engaging into. It's hard. I don't know how to put it in words right now. It's really hard for me, but it's just so difficult because my first responder people are different than. I've had a couple of French Canadians come in for therapy, mm-hmm. and it's different than working with my Americans from here. Than working for the Americans. I've got a few in California that I do over the phone, and Colorado people. And again, sorry for the general stereotype, but sometimes I'd be like, okay, just don't smoke weed 4 hours prior to our session.
Right.
First responders are the same thing. How do you deal with the cultural differences from day to day because they change constantly?
I mean, with the first responder population, it's not just being culturally competent in what their day-to-day typically entails. It's also how they process things. Their mentality is extremely different than just, you know, a regular person. You know, they are constant fight or
Wait,
flight.
let me write that down.
They're constantly fight or flight mode. You know, they see things that not a typical person sees in their day to day. And it's understanding how they process those things, how they deal with those things, and how they continue to move forward. You know, are they isolating? Are they, you know, turning to poor coping skills, whether it's avoiding or, you know, substances or infidelity, whatever those things may be, to kind of get their minds off of things? You know, what is it that they're doing, and then how can we reframe that mindset?
And how do we reframe that mindset? Because for me, like, it's hard for me to tell them, don't have a drink after work to calm your nerves.
Right.
I mean, that's sometimes as simple as that. And it's not about calming your nerves, for the record, only from work. Sometimes it's the stress coming home and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, I think it's definitely figuring out how they cope first, and then figuring out why they cope the way that they do and how they want to improve those coping skills. So whether, I mean, we'll bring it back to the drinking. Is that the only way they know how to cope? So that's all they do? Is it because they don't know any other skills? Do they want to learn any other skills? Is it even an issue? You know, are they just having like one drink just to take the edge off, to just calm their nerves and then be done? Or is it, you know, they're downing a bottle? You know, like where is that line of, you know, using that mechanism as a coping skill? But then also looking at the bigger picture. What are they coming home to? You know, are they coming home to kids, to an empty house, a wife, a girlfriend? How are they of support? And that's also another important thing about treating first responders, is also, you know, making sure that their loved ones also know how to support them, because it's different, because again, they see things that not a typical person sees on a day to day. You know, their lives are threatened on a daily. And, you know, when they walk out that door to go on shift, you know, you don't know if they're coming back home that day. And that's the unfortunate reality of the first responders in this world in today's day and age. I mean, not to say that isn't for everybody. I mean, we could be driving down the street and have a freak accident. Like, we all don't know, but it's more heightened for them, essentially. And being able to support those individuals themselves and also their significant others or their family members at home is like huge, to have that, you know, what we call the wraparound service.
The wraparound service, yes. It is very important. I think that one of the skills that I've developed over the course of the time I worked with first responders is to bring in the spouses. Not for the whole, like, not for like every week.
Right.
But, you know, once every 3 months, every 2 months, every 6 months. Hey, how's everything going? How's the communication at home? Sometimes I've been successful. Sometimes I haven't been as successful. You have a particular position on that.
Yeah.
That we haven't brought up here. Obviously, I know this, but as a spouse
Yes.
of first/emergency responder, because I hear that's a thing now, they call it emergency responder.
Okay.
But just saying that someone said that to me.
All right.
But how unique are the challenges, especially for you? You got 3 girls, you said?
Yep. 3 girls.
3 girls. Your poor husband is like already like outnumbered.
Correct.
But how do you deal with this? Like, you have a specific experience with that. How do you deal with all that stuff?
I mean, for us, it's just, you know, having that open line of communication, and it's learning how to communicate, especially during like certain events, like whether it's a traumatic call or just like a crappy day at work, you know. Sometimes he doesn't want to talk about it, and that's fine. But I just leave the door open, being like, you want to talk about it? I'm here. You know, I always have to remind him, like, I'm coming at you as your wife, not as a clinician. So remember that. I was like, but if you want me to put my clinician hat on, I'll gladly do that. But it's just, you know, keeping that open line of communication, and just sometimes they just need to decompress, and like, last thing they want to do is come home and talk about work, you know?
Right.
But once it starts affecting the home life, whether it's, you know, the intimacy at home, whether it's the communication, whether it's the children and their presence, whether they're just physically there but their mind is somewhere else, then that as a spouse is when you need to learn when it is that you need to step in.
Right. And do you have any advice as to when to step in for anyone?
As a wife of a first responder, for me, it's more so when I start seeing that whatever it is that he's going through, or even other first responders, because, I do ride along with the police, so then, we do talk about these things. And, with other officers that I have been out on calls on, it's, when you start seeing that work is spilling over to home and you can't leave it at the door, that's when it needs to be talked about. Whether it's, you're just having a real tough time at work and you don't know how to leave it at the door, or, you're upset about something at work and then you're taking it out on your loved ones at home who have no fault in any of that. So I think recognizing those signs is important, and knowing how to approach your loved one about that, because again, you also don't want them to feel attacked. You want to approach it in an appropriate way so that they will open up to you, because again, first responders are hesitant to seek treatment as it is, never mind just opening up to a loved one at home. So making sure that you know how to do that appropriately and learning those skills is imperative.
And not come off as the mental health counselor,
Correct.
which is very important too, because I think that's what some spouses who are not in our field, they're like, oh, you should go talk to someone or whatever. The way they present the message
Right.
is so important, because, me sitting around with some ride-alongs or whatever you want to call it now, because they change the name constantly
Right.
on me. I remember that most of the time I'd end up going on 2 or 3 calls, but the rest of the time is 2 to 3 hours of an officer opening up about different things. And that's the unique perspective that I got, and I'm sure that you get, not only as a spouse of, but also being in a ride-along and going on a call and being able to talk between calls, because it's not always as dramatic as we sound,
Right.
but we also have some calls that are like, wow, that's really screwed up.
Right. And we do, especially when our unit first started, we did do that a lot. I mean, and we still do now. We would process that call like, hey, how do you think that went? And again, it's also learning each other's style and learning, where that fine line is of, this is the clinician's aspect of it. This is where the clinician steps in. But then once things are no longer being effective, now the police needs to step in and do their part. So it's also, as a clinician, learning that line of staying in your lane, essentially, doing what it is that you're there to do. But if the message isn't being accepted and they're just not getting it, now the police need to step forward and you need to take a step back and let them do what they need to do.
I remember years ago when I started, it was 2006. That's how old it is. One of the things that Sarah Abbott, who has done...
She's great.
She's awesome. Said, remember, you're on their turf.
Right.
And to me, that's the great lesson to learn, is that you're on their turf. Respect their turf.
Correct.
So you talk about staying in their lane. I say respect their turf. So they say, hey, you know what, back off. You don't go, well, I think, no, you don't think anything. You sit back and you do it. You can have that conversation after.
Yep.
But sit back when they tell you to sit back.
Exactly.
As we run out of time again, I think this went really well. I hope that you can come back at some point,
Absolutely.
because I like the setup and really like talking to you. But is there any particular things you want to talk about, want to make sure that people know about that you're doing right now? Or
Again, so I am the clinician here with the Family Services Unit. I do respond out in the Milford community. We do assist with other local towns surrounding us if needed. We do have our Recovery Resource Center, Chris's Corner, as well. We have therapists, case managers down there, and recovery coaches. We have New England Medical Group with the PHP IOP as well for mental health as the primary, which is a great resource here in the area. And community impact for our outpatient therapy that we offer as well. So I'm very accessible, whether it's calling the PD and asking to be connected with me. You can find us on the Milford PD's website, or you can call over to Community Impact. That's where my office is located, so that's where you can find me if you need any assistance or being connected with resources. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to come back so we can dive in some more into, treating our first responders and supporting their loved ones.
well, I know about all those services. It'll be in the show notes.
Awesome.
Make sure people click on it. And Amanda, you are truly someone that, again, I never got this conversation with you per se. Very happy. And I know that our group, Behind the Badge and Beyond, we're getting to know each other really well, and it's nice to have people who think similarly.
Correct.
So I do appreciate you, really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to have you back on.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
And for those of you who will be joining us, hopefully you enjoyed episode 227 with Amanda Rizoli with a onesie. And I hope that you come back next time for episode 228. Thank you very much.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.